Hello, my name is Salman Hamid, and I'm Assistant Professor of Integrated Science and Humanities at Hampshire College.
I'm Kevin Anderson. I teach courses in film and anthropology at the University of Massachusetts, and this is Film Autopsy.
You'd like to come for rob me sometime.
I know who you are.
Oh yeah, who's that?
One of them Bond Ramp boys. My daddy says you boys are the worst thing ever to hit Franklin.
You tell your daddy I said hi.
We got a chance to make a good stack of money here.
Pure corn whiskey, so white lightning. Come on, Forrest, see you dance.
I ain't dancing for you two.
Come on.
It's impressive.
I respect you, Bond Rest.
You want any more of this stuff?
As much as you can bring me.
That's $2,000. Minus my commission.
Look at you, swanning around like you're Al Capone.
They say in town you're looking for someone to help out around the place. Well, Mr. Bondrin, do I get the job?
Seems you've been involved in certain illegal activities.
There's a new special deputy. You've been brought in from the city. Wants to work it out so everybody can do some business. That's all.
I'm the one who's going to make your life real difficult from now on if you don't toe the line, country boy.
Those men that attacked you, they weren't for dangerous people.
There's a feeling around these parts that these Bondurants is indestructible.
Do you mean immortal? You have any idea what a Thompson submachine gun does to a mortal? We are survivors. We control the fear. But without the fear, we are all as good as dead. This is a war they're waging. You ain't gonna survive. It is not the violence that sets men apart. It is the distance that he is prepared to go.
Hello, and welcome to the film Autopsy of Lawless. New film by John Hillcoat, directed by Nick Cave, and starring Shia LaBeouf, Guy Pearce, Tom Hardy, Jessica Chastain, Gary Oldman, and some other people you might even recognize. Anyhow, this film takes place in Virginia during Prohibition, and it revolves around the story of three brothers who are bootleggers, and everything's going fine. They make deals with the local sheriff and police, and they actually buy the booze from them, and they don't shut them down. But then the feds come in, and whenever the feds come in, they strong arm. And Forrest Bondurant, played by Tom Hardy, excellent performance, turns down the offer to be exploited and have to pay off the feds. Thus begins a very violent and engaging and rather brutal pitting between the three brothers and Guy Pearce's rather creepy lawman.
Yeah, I mean, it's written, the screenplay is by Nick Cave, and
based on a book by Matt Bondurant, who's part of the Bondurant family.
Right, so that actually already tells you a little bit that it's, it's a family story. So, and we'll come back to it in a second. but the key point, the screenplay is by Nick Cave, and I really liked, and I think you did too, Proposition, which was the same writer-director combination, and that was a very unusual Western.
An unromantic Australian Western.
Set in Australia, and I thought that was brilliant, and that also
Guy
had
Pearce as well.
Three brothers and dealing with that. So, I think the overall structure, so you have this lawman, which in that case was also there, who is kind of evil, the lawman in that one. Creepy evil, and same thing here, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think the structure is the same, except that one was set in Australia and this one is set in Virginia. So this was interesting from the perspective that oftentimes we see American films or American directors looking at other cultures and putting the lenses on there. Here you have pretty much Australian team reimagining the American West in some sense. I thought it was an interesting film, but as much as I like Nick Cave and his writing and his songs and everything, and Proposition, I think this was a little too heavy-handed, and the violence seemed to be for the sake of violence. And let me give you one example. So the real evil guy in here is played by Guy Pearce. And he's so over the top evil. I mean, his hairstyle and his methodologies and things like that. He was evil just for the sake of being weird, but not because of any particular philosophy, which actually was different in Proposition. Proposition, the evil guy was genuinely evil because he was also a poet. He loved beautiful sunsets. And he truly understood the nature of evil. Here, Guy Pearce was more cartoonish. I would have guessed it like, in a sort of like, in Bugs Bunny cartoon or something like that, like, coming out of there, except very violent ones.
Yeah. Okay, well here's where you're wrong there, because I think he holds nothing but contempt for these brothers, for having to leave Chicago, where he has this nice, comfortable posting, to go to the rural backwoods of Virginia and have to engage in this kind of blood feud. So I think that fuels quite a bit of his evil. He looks down not only on the brothers, but on everybody around there, that they're uncultured, they're unintelligent. He often uses the word hicks and dumbass, things like that. So I think that helps kind of justify his kind of rage of violence against particularly these brothers.
Yeah, but I think it wasn't integrated in the movie well enough, that particular type of story. Like every time he would come out and he would be seen in a cartoonish manner. I think the guy who was interesting in that film, Tom Hardy, by the way, Tom Hardy's acting is phenomenal. We saw him in The Warrior. Also, he was
good.
fantastic.
And I will say, Shia LaBeouf, I've never really had an opinion about him, namely because I just know he's in Transformers films, but I thought he was good in this. I was like, oh, he's an actor.
I always had an opinion about Shia LaBeouf. He's horrible, but in this movie, he actually kind of works. But here is the thing. Gary Oldman. I mean, he plays a gangster in there, and I think his character was smaller, and he was far more interesting than Guy Pearce, because Guy Pearce became a one-dimensional. I mean, I agree. Every time he would come in, he had nothing but contempt, but his character became one-dimensional contempt, nothing more than that, and we didn't see him. Why he holds that contempt. I mean, apart from he's coming from Chicago, there wasn't any development of characters. And I think one thing that I really had a problem in this film was its predictability. I mean, its ending, I mean, I don't want to give it, but it's like so conventional, so predictable. It reminded me of Dark Knight Rises. I mean, like, in terms of sort of what is going on.
They're sitting around it. Well, we don't want to give too much away. Well, I'll just say this. The three brothers, particularly the middle brother, Forrest, believes that they're all immortal, that the Bondurants are somehow immortal. And that does produce a kind of comical ending to the film.
Comical?
But what about awards? Is this going to get any nominations?
I hope not. I mean, maybe perhaps the only thing could be music. Music was fine, but again, I actually thought, and again, music done by Nick Cave. He didn't sort of like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds didn't record the music, but certainly they used sort of like other songs from
existing
that era,
songs,
existing songs,
redid them,
and those were interesting, but I would say kind of predictable. Those songs too were kind of predictable. Hey, we're gonna make a movie around the Prohibition era. Here is the standard collection of songs that you use. So I would rather go and see Oh Brother, Where Art Thou or some other films rather than this thing. I mean, it's fine. Violence for the sake of violence, but nothing special.
I was going to say one of its nominations would be best use of brass knuckles in a feature-length motion picture.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Okay.
But yeah, overall, I think it's a missable film. But I think, and perhaps the problem is that these are Australians looking at American culture, and it doesn't really get into the kind of nuances they brought in Proposition.
I highly recommend it, especially with a little glass of rather strong bourbon on the side.
All my love to you.